Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words in the upper left-hand corner that say Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. From that web page, you can also download the actual worksheet process itself. A simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, in which people have been stepped through that worksheet process, and if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you and help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@yagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. We greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be a service, and that's just a whole lot easier to do when we know how you like what's happening and how it's landing for you. The other option for participating is to join us live from 11 to noon Central Time most weekdays. Go to zoom.us and enter the meeting ID number 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. It's also possible to use one of the many numbers that Zoom makes available and just call in on the phone and then enter that meeting ID number. If you do that, you'll come in muted, and you can toggle on and off the mute with *6. So we're glad you're here. We have plenty of time for comments or questions. What's on your mind? How can we support you today? I had made a note for myself about something that I didn't catch yesterday in the show when Susan Bingham said this, but as I re-listened to the show, which was finally available this morning, I have a note that says, Susan was saying that she hopes she doesn't have to hit bottom the same way Liz Gilbert did. And she said it 2 or 3 times, as though something about the intensity of the drama and trauma that Liz Gilbert went through, that she writes about in her book, her new book, All the Way to the River, is going to somehow create a template for what other people have to do. And I want to interrupt that thought and say that's really not what's happening. And it's the point of all of these tools is that the more we're willing to use tools rather than try to figure it out, the more we're willing to quit doing the things we've always done that haven't worked and try something new, the closer we move to the day where we no longer need these nudges, you might say, from life, these wake-up calls, these prompts, as Michael Ryce says, that cause pain to make our ears grow. So if we're not listening, life has a way to help us wake up and listen. It's called pain. And if we don't find a way out of our rut, we'll end up running into the rut long enough that we collapse or we hit the wall at the end or whatever. And we could use that as the impetus to make a change and get our life together. And yet we don't have to wait for that to happen. We can be using the tools daily. We can use it for the little things and the moderate-sized things. And lo and behold, if we're willing to do that, we will build such skill and facility with these tools and we'll keep them so top of mind that we'll actually think about using them when the bigger events happen, and they will provide whatever relief they can at that time. But aside from the relief, they'll facilitate the healing and growth we need to do to move on without carrying all that baggage. So I hope that addresses a comment that Susan was making yesterday that I, for whatever reason, I didn't respond live when it was happening. And that's my offering so far. We had our support group last night, and we listened to one of the more recent Michael Singer podcasts where he's describing and inviting us to explore what are the qualities of mind, M-I-N-D, as opposed to heart. And I don't mean the physical heart, but I mean the heart space, this mechanism that integrates or holds experiences between the thoughts and the physical sensations we call emotions. That heart that either stays wide open and allows us to experience things deeply, richly, intensely, or that heart that closes down and lets us experience other intense, not so pleasant things. You know, the denial and suppression are not healing solutions. They're just temporary mechanisms of the on-fire mind, you might say, the mind that believes it's under life-threatening circumstances. Which means it's a mind that's only operating at the scale or the level of scale of physical reality. And so, you know, there are things at a physical level that somebody might steal your money or somebody might, you know, inflict an injury on you, etc., or end your life physically. And yet your essence is not negatively affected by that. Who and what you are, your ability to be aware, your consciousness, your soul, your seat of the soul, whatever words you want to use to describe it, is never in danger. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and they've got an 18-year-old who is absolutely certain that there's no real purpose in life. And none of this makes any difference. And it's all about suffering. What are you going to say to somebody like that? Well, if you have access to some of these deeper spiritual teachings, you might say what the Course in Miracles says about meaning. You are the one that gives this moment all the meaning it has for you. It's those things that you hold in your mind, and you decide they're valuable, or you decide this is really me, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. It's that process of pouring your mind energy into something that creates your experience of yourself and the world and that thing in that moment. Guy Finley summarizes it in the very short poem, "As goes my attention, so comes my experience." I tend to be a little bit wordier, and I say, I'd like to tell you two things about yourself. One of them is that you have the infinite capacity to choose the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment. And the second thing is, it is the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment that actually creates your experience of life in that moment. And so, in direct opposition to what the culture would teach me, I've learned that when I have a thump of anger or fear or sadness, the very best use of my energy is to take a breath and turn the focus inside myself and breathe in a way that supports calming this physical energy system. I recommend a full set of air in my lungs, a pause for 2 or 3 seconds at the top of the breath, and a resistance to the exhale that makes the exhale last much, much longer than I normally do. And when I do that, it sends a signal to my body, oh, Tim wants to relax. And I've learned over the years that that's what, it'll do for me, so I'm anticipating it. And then I turn the focus inside myself, which is where all of my emotional energies get recognized, labeled, and experienced, and I start asking in a very gently, wide open, childlike curiosity kind of way, I wonder how I'm creating this upset in me right now, or I wonder how I'm creating this anger or this sadness or this fear. Another question I can ask, which is equally valuable in that moment, is, what am I making this situation mean? So there was an example yesterday. I had a session scheduled, and we hit the hour mark, and the person wasn't here. They're usually very prompt and timely. So I waited 5 minutes. They're not here. 10, 15 minutes. They're not here. I get on my phone, and I text a message, are you intending to be at the session? 15 or 20 minutes later, there's a response that says yes. Well, now we're, it's a half an hour past the scheduled time of the session. So I just started chuckling, and I picked up the phone and called the person. And I could have paid attention to the myriad thoughts that go flooding through my mind when I have a session scheduled and somebody's normally here and they don't show up, and I start to wonder. Or the thoughts flow through my mind. It's not even me pouring mind energy into it. It's just, they're so well practiced over the years. Oh, I wonder what's wrong. Did I make a mistake? I better double check my calendar. Is this person sick of therapy and they're dropping out without telling me? I mean, just a, kaleidoscopic wheel of thoughts and interpretations. I've learned over the years, they don't have any validity that I don't give them. And so I watch them and I take a breath and I let them go. And then I clear my mind. If I'm having any upset, I do a mental short version of the reality management worksheet, ask to be shown the hidden part of my mind that's creating this upset, relax, take it down a notch or two, and then I decide, well, do I send this person a text message now, or do I call? And it's all about my awareness based on, years of observation and the bottom line observations, that if I have a negative thought active in my mind about myself or somebody else, if I have a negative emotion active in my mind, I know 3 things instantly. It's based in a lie or a falsehood. It's an old tape playing. It's not about the present moment. And if I act from this energy of frustration or anger or hurt or fear or whatever, I'm going to make my life situation worse, not better. So I breathe and I soften and I at least put myself in the questioning, wondering, awe-filled state of, gee, this is interesting. You're sitting here in your own office, a climate-controlled room, and all of a sudden you're generating irritation or fear or hurt or confusion or anger. I wonder what you're using to generate that. Just as I say that phrase, I wonder what I'm using to generate that, it just struck me in that moment. This is a phrase I've never heard growing up about my emotions. I heard phrases like, what's making you so angry? What's making you so afraid? What's making you feel ashamed? I've heard those phrases, but they all put the focus of the power to create and control my emotions outside of me. And it wasn't until a little bit before I encountered Michael and his work that I got introduced to this concept that, you know what, that's not how this system works. And then I got introduced to Michael Ryce's work, and it's even more specific. He said in one of his earlier worksheets, if I'm in pain, I'm in error. So my willingness to understand the power behind the phrase, I wonder how I'm creating this emotion or this fear or this sad, the power behind that goes beyond words, every heartbeat. And that's our invitation for people. With this work, please just try the tools. Please start exploring for yourself. Is it possible that every emotion you've ever experienced was created inside you, and that it's created as a product of how the meaning you're giving your experience in life in that moment is rationalizing, generating, and then rationalizing to maintain your emotion in that moment? And we've talked about it. If I'm upset at any level, I can know that whatever my mind is telling me about what that upset is a lie. And it's a wonderful example last week with Andrea and her, I believe that the teacher was the one who's helped her with her inner child work, but it's a powerful example about how if Andrea had just reacted the way her initial response was with all of those thoughts and gone to have a head-butting conversation with her teacher, it would have gone a very different way. They might have gotten a good result in the end, but it would have been different. Then she did some work with Michael Ryce on the show, did her own work individually, identified some of her own patterns that might be giving rise to the emotions she was feeling and the meaning that she was giving, the interpretation she was placing on these various events in her life. And then she went in to have a conversation with her teacher, and they got lucky in this instance. Andrea was coming from a loving space. Her teacher was coming from a loving space. And they cleared up the communication. And they discovered, oh, we aren't 180 degrees off of each other. Oh, we agree on a lot of these critically important things. And oh, I don't have to dump the anger and bitterness and hurt and resentment that I'm carrying with me from my past abusive interactions with people, I don't have to dump that in the middle of my interaction with anybody today if I'm willing to use the tools. So, how is this landing for people? Is this making sense? Are there questions that we're raising? As usual, in lieu of comments or questions, which I invite you to continue to consider and be willing to raise a hand, even if you're thinking of it at a time when I'm talking or reading. I consider those blessings and positive additions to the show, so please feel free to interrupt and raise a hand. And if nobody does that, I will return to reading from the book of One Love, One Life, One Journey. And I believe we left off without reading this last section, so I'll start with the section titled From Loss to Legacy, Turning Old Pain into New Purpose. We can see every day that loss is a part of life. Sidebar here, David White, the poet, philosopher, he said, half of all human interaction is colored by loss, because he's tapping into the wisdom from Way of Mastery and other places where it says everything that begins in time ends in time. Now, there are those who don't want to buy into that and think we can live forever as eternal beings in the physical realm, etc. That's fine. However, these ancient truths, like the Buddha saying, an intimate part of life is suffering. It's one of the Four Noble Truths. These are not meant to be negativistic or doom and gloom teachings. They're meant to be practical observation teachings, and says, when I'm in this situation and this is happening, here's how I can move through it with the least amount of suffering. Here's how, when this kind of situation happens, I create suffering that then I say I don't want. So rather than being something that locks me into creating an experience I don't want, I view these teachings as helping me deal in the moment with whatever's arising, with allowance and surrender and acceptance and questioning. So back to Guy Finley, he writes, as we can see every day, loss is a significant part of life. We all suffer losses, big and small. The question is, what is their meaning for us as individuals? Will we grow bitter from our losses and see no point in life? Like the 18-year-old I was mentioning earlier? Will our grief bind us to time past that we just can't seem to get beyond? Or will our loss become a turning point that actually expands our relationship with life? The great sages have always told us that our losses, taken rightly, can help us reach a place beyond our present level. And I quickly scanned the 3 or 4 quotes he has here, and he doesn't have Rumi in it. There's a Rumi quote that just came to mind to the effect of, all pain in the presence of love becomes medicine. All pain in the presence of love becomes medicine. He quotes Dostoevsky as saying, the darker the night, the brighter the stars. The deeper the grief, the closer is God. And Oscar Wilde said, where there is sorrow, there is holy ground. And Marcel Proust writes, happiness is beneficial for the body, but it is grief that develops the powers of the mind. And Khalil Gibran said, the deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirits the very wood that was hollowed with knives? Guy Finley writes, we must learn to see in the events of our life, joyful as well as painful, we must learn to see what lies beyond them. They are like waves in the sea that all point to the ocean from which they arise and to which they return. The ocean is the presence of this peace and wholeness for which we yearn. No one will deny that loss is painful. The question is, can we use it to open our hearts instead of shutting them down? Now, this is right out of Michael Singer. He gives tremendous talks about how the heart is designed to be open. And when your heart is open, this energy flows up through the root chakras, from life itself, into, through, as, and around you. It just keeps cycling. And your experience of life can be as pleasant as you choose to allow it to be, or it can be as distraught as you choose to create it to be. He writes, no one will deny that loss is painful. The question is, can we use it to open our hearts instead of shutting them down? Now, at first, this may seem impossible, but as we awaken to change how we see moments of loss, the meaning of those moments changes. There's a gentleman who has done some really good writing on grief and about the next stage of grief, past Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages. The next stage, in the short version, is that you work to make a meaning of this life event that includes a loss, that heals you, that nurtures you, that supports you in moving forward. Guy Finley, back to Guy Finley, he writes, for instance, what if we knew that whatever is, quote, taken, close quotes, from us in this life, whatever is taken comes with an invisible gift. In the same moment, in the moment we lose something, space opens up for us to receive something else or learn something else. What if we could see that? What if we could see that in the moment something is taken from us, an invisible gift is given? This new understanding that holds the promise of giving us something better than what we lost. Guy Finley talks about this in some of his other talks. He says, most of us detest change so much that we get dragged kicking and screaming into heaven or into that which is better. And then at some point in time, if we're lucky, we wake up and realize, oh, wait, this is better. Right? The relationship that ends that I didn't want. I just flashed on a time. I've mentioned this before. It was in this very office, and I was talking to somebody that was bemoaning something about there's not enough time. I hear these things that I think I need to be happy and have satisfaction or get contentment or heal or integrate or whatever it is, and I'm running out of time. And my response to this person kind of surprised even me, but I was filled with this realization that, you know what? 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, both of them are accurate, I thought I knew what I needed to be happy. And I was working on it. And it included a stable family, raising my sons, giving them the kind of safe, happy, productive launch that I had in life. And here I am now. Oh, that included, making a certain amount of money and being able to retire at a certain age and everything else. And here I am now, 25 years later, 30 years later, and I'm shocked to be able to say that I have almost nothing that was on that list of things that I thought I needed to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be contented, whatever. And yet I have a greater sense of contentment and focus and peace in my life than I even knew was possible 25 or 30 years ago. And it didn't come from the striving that I had been doing. It didn't come from trying to control all these factors. It came from learning better how to go with the flow, how to use what I had control over in a way that it was more of a blessing to myself and others rather than a hindrance. So back to the guy Finley writing. He writes, for instance, what if we knew that whatever is taken from us in this life comes with an invisible gift in that same moment, and that gift is their new understanding that holds the promise of giving us something better than what we lost? For instance, take the loss of someone we love. The heart hurts, as it must, and one's thoughts long to reflect on the person that is gone. But what if, and this is something you must come to see for yourself, what if, in losing the person we love, we're handled the possibility of realizing the capital L love itself that put us together in the first place? Forms come and go. It's under law. That's one of Guy Finley's favorite phrases. This is the way things work. It's under law. And yet, capital L love that gives rise to those forms and gives rise to their relationships with each other, that capital L love endures. It is the secret heart that beats the heart in us and that fills it with what must eventually empty out so that our, quote, loss, close quotes, might motivate us to seek and gain a living relationship with that capital L love itself. Now, Guy Finley, Michael Ryce, a lot of talk about love, a lot of talk about holding the space of love or having every cell in your body vibrate love. And they're just words. What's your experience? This is the invitation in this work. Several times in different spiritual teachings, I run into the idea that, you know what? I can't tell you what love is. And your intellect can't ever comprehend love, the essence of the creative force that gave rise to all of us, etc. Not to mention the fact that it would take several decades just to sort out all of the humanistic, sexual, brotherly love, agape love type of templates that have been using the word love and used to describe people's, perceptive experiences. It would take decades to unravel that. And once you do, you still don't have words that will accurately describe life, energy, creation, expansion, nature, the universe, and the driving force behind all of it. So if that's the case, what's the use of our intellect? Well, one good use of our intellect is to help us watch for and identify all those things that come up that are not loving and see how we are at least complicit in creating them, if not fully responsible. So what is love? I don't know. But here's what love does. Here's what love doesn't do in the way of mastery in a number of different places. The phrase is something like, love allows all things, love embraces all things, love trusts all things, love accepts all things, love honors all things, and thereby transcends all things. In other words, here's a bunch of words pointing at the idea that whatever I'm referring to goes beyond even the words themselves. And yet, when I'm upset, what I'm upset about never goes beyond words. It's confined to the words. It's amplified by the words. It's strengthened by the words I use. I can strengthen my identification with it by the words that I use, either the thinking words or the spoken words. And so that can be a good focus for my intellect. Let me build in some mental, warning flags that at the earliest warning sign of tightness or tension or any of the emotions that I don't like, I call a timeout for myself and I reprogram myself, because I've been programmed to search the outside environment to see what I need to attack or run away from or avoid or seduce or bribe to get it to change so I don't have to feel what I'm feeling. But I can reprogram myself to take that breath and turn the focus inside and just start asking to be shown how I'm the one creating what I'm feeling in this moment. I may ask to be shown, how is the sensation that I'm feeling in this moment a wake-up call for me? An alarm trying to indicate to me that there's something fundamentally flawed about the conclusions I've reached, or about the focus of my attention in this moment. So, comments, questions, thoughts, answers, reactions?
Hi, Tim.
Hello, is this Susan Bingham?
It is.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Well, this is the great topic. I'm still reading Elizabeth Gilbert's book, and I'm amazed at how dedicated she is to accompanying her friends through her illness to her death, which includes putting up with the cocaine addict.
Well, it included for her, right? Her choice was.
Yeah. But, and so, well, you know me, I've been working on this. What is that? And what is the difference between love addiction and love? And there isn't a clear line to me at all. It has something to do with an endorphin rush, as if it's a drug. But when I'm with somebody I really like, I'm sure I'm getting a rush, but I don't think that's an addiction. The word compulsion has been used, and maybe that's a good word.
That's a big, good one. That's the idea that is contained in Michael Ryce's definition of addiction, which is a pivotal piece in his description, and I'll just say it briefly. The compulsive use of any drug, food, behavior, person, activity to distract me from or numb out from an internal pain, fear, or sadness. That's my addition. Pain, fear, or sadness. And or to block me from seeing and acting on my highest guidance. But it's the key there is the compulsive use.
And there's so much fear, or maybe just me, but I think probably fear is a huge factor. I don't know how to apply that with, say, somebody who's addicted to alcohol or drugs, because they aren't, to my mind, they aren't afraid of the drug. But in my love addiction, there's a tremendous amount of fear that the person won't like me, and I've got to somehow mold myself into
Okay.
what that person would like.
Okay, so let me just help you or ask you to clarify. What do you mean by they're not afraid of the drug? And by implication there, you're saying somebody else in this system is afraid of something, and you've lost me with that when you say that they're not afraid of their drug. What do you mean?
A drug isn't a human. A drug doesn't have choice. A drug is sitting there to be used or not. A drug in that way is neutral. The person who wants the drug wants it to give them
avoid their fear or their pain or their sadness.
Yeah.
So there can very, very strongly, and quite often there is fear in the alcohol addict or the drug addict. And that's fear that they're using the drug to numb out from.
Right. With my experience with love addiction is I used the relationship as a way to numb out.
Yes.
But I was afraid that the person who I was using would attack me or not like me, which is like an attack.
Okay, so what you're saying here is that what you're uncovering for yourself is that there's another layer of fear beyond the initial one, right? Because the thing that you're using to try and assuage your fear of loneliness or not being good enough is a relationship with somebody else. And the instant you start that, you're coming from the place of fearful that you're going to get it wrong and they're going to reject you.
Yeah, it's good. That's right.
So it's another good reason why something like drug and I meant to say love, sex and love addiction is more elusive, and why there aren't as many good programs about helping people with it, because it's got layers of complexity to it.
Yeah, it does.
For a lot of people, it's like the problem with the food addiction.
Yeah.
Because the solution when I have an alcohol addiction is, in the beginning, it's stop using the alcohol so I can get in direct relationship with the pain, fear, or sadness I was using to avoid it and try to heal it.
Right.
However, with the sex and love addict or the food, I'm not going to quit interacting with people. I'm not going to quit having relationships. I'm not going to say the only hope for me is a sexless life until I dry up and blow away. The same thing with the food addiction. I'm not going to say, okay, that's easy. I just don't eat anymore. Right? So it adds a layer of complexity when we understand that the thing I was using as a drug, even though it isn't a drug, is something I use differently to really positive benefit when it's not colored by my running from my pain, fear, and sadness.
Right. That's true. Also, and this is very personal, I've been assured the contact of the radio show, which has felt healthy and normal and mostly peaceful. I watch my addict because, in a way, there's no reason to be afraid, because you're going to show up on this show. I trust that you're going to show up on this show, and I can get some kind of a fix by just being on the show, and that is enough, and that's that's been good. It's been a guarantee of a steady parent, for instance, something like that. I take it back to my childhood. If I know my mom is going to show up, or if I know she's going to be good to us, and she was in so many ways, but that sick other way that happened, there's a black hole there. There's just a hole there. And I wasn't sure if she was going to be there or who she would be if she was there. I'm trusting that on the radio show, you've got your own rules. And whether you like me or not, I won't know that. But on the radio show, I can be guaranteed a steady contact with somebody who won't run off and leave. I don't know how, but this has been, it's like having two pathways. One way is de-iced and smooth, and I can go along that. And the other, very bumpy, icy road is running parallel to it. And I've gotten a chance to watch my mind for these. Well, this addiction didn't set in with you till a couple of years ago when you gave me a one-on-one session at one point, and I said, well, how much would you like to be paid? What's your fee? And you said, no, you're a colleague. I'm not going to charge you. I shouldn't say that on the radio show. Don't anybody get any ideas?
Well, and let me just clarify. You're talking about something that happened almost 7 years ago.
Yeah, well, it was more like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, because
yes.
I was working with you before any kind of addictive connection took.
I don't know anything about your addictive connection. That's been inside your head. You've been keeping it private. That's fine. What I'm trying to point out to you is that the first time I called you and we had an extended conversation, it was specifically because something came up on the internet show and you didn't get the support that I thought you deserved in that call to resolve the issue. And I called the next day and we had an hour and a half conversation. And it was specific, focused, right? It had those parameters around it.
Yeah.
And that was it'll be 7 years this next March.
Okay. I don't know how to fit that report from your side with my perception of how things happen, but we can still work together. And I must have to say, usually people call in with a question. I don't think this is a question. I'm just talking to you. I'm just exploring out loud.
Which is perfect.
Okay. I'm trying not.
And it's like, I'm envisioning like peeling off layers of the corn husk to get at what you really need to get at.
Yeah.
Just by having the conversation and talking about, okay, so what is it in you that creeps in, so to speak, in an otherwise normal, relatively healthy interaction, and it creeps in and it builds up, and all of a sudden you realize you've got this compulsion to interact with that person or to get something in the reaction from them or in the interaction with them. That's good work. Just discussing that and trying to stay open in questioning it rather than deciding you know what it is.
This is not, you're right. You get on me for trying to figure things out, and I'm trying to figure this out. So I'm trying to allow things to become clear without figuring out, but I have no way of keeping on that track without being messy about it. But there is a byproduct, and I don't even know if it's a real byproduct of that, but I have never been happier. Now, what the heck? It might be just because when people get older, they just like it, or something heals all by itself.
Well, that's not the way I've experienced life, and most of the people I work with. I mean, the kinds of lifelong anxiety that you were experiencing, the kind of tortured nightlife
and depression
that you had when you called 8 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't usually go away all by itself. That usually gets more pronounced or more rigid or more, we get the old phrase, we get settled in our ways.
You are my training wheels. That's what this is. And I'm getting ready to be shoved off. First with the training wheels, so the dad isn't behind me, pushing me. And then the training wheels themselves can come off. It just popped to mind that that's what's happening. And you're functioning first as the dad behind the training wheels, and I've still got the training wheels, but the training wheels and the dad, I hope I can let them go. I can't say I can yet. But anyway, there it is. That's one part of it anyway.
Well, just sit with that for a minute and see what bubbles up with that realization.
Well, heartache and shame, both.
Heartache and shame?
Yeah.
And does the heartache flow from the part of your statement there where you're trying to get rid of the training wheels and go out on your own? Is that the heartache part?
I have no idea. I can't tell right now. I was listening to it's one of those synchronous things. I've been trying to find a way of letting go of tension in the way I walk and carry myself so that I can not have a hip operation. And since I'm strong because of, the way I've lived my life, and since everything seems to work except in one position, which I've squat down and pick up something, suddenly I can't get up because there's this massive sharp pain in my right groin. And I talked to Michael about it, and he said, there's the breath needs to be brought in there. And I'm thinking of a friend of mine who does Reiki from a distance, and I've thought about that, and Reiki for myself, and all sorts of approaches. And what should pop up on the internet was a Buddhist self-healing meditation, visualization. I'm not even through with it. I just saw it, and I started listening to it, and I thought, this feels very right. So I started listening to it. But it does have to do with visualizing and breathing. And this narrator is saying, you can heal yourself. Your body is naturally healing itself all the time. You can do this even when you think this is beyond repair, like a bone-on-bone hip socket situation. So why am I telling you this, and where is this going? I have no. Oh, he was talking about one thing you need to do. This is the huge issue. I never saw, but once by accident saw my mother cry. And although I have just been wiped out a few times on the radio show by total surprise, I generally don't cry. And I project tremendous admiration on people who do cry, although sometimes I think the crying is a manipulation and I'm unmoved. But I think whether it's intuition or not, I have no idea. But when a person sincerely cries, I'm moved by that. And this Buddha person is saying, some emotion that you haven't been able to express needs to be expressed, and you may not feel you can do it in any kind of prearranged way. It'll happen through your body. And I thought, oh man, I'm all for this. I don't know how he's going to tell that we do it, but I think what I just felt with that heart thing is a lot of crying.
You felt that it was trying to bubble up in you?
Or just that it's sitting in there. The valves are all shut. I'm not about to. I don't feel
Okay.
any urge to do
With
that.
what heart thing?
The ache in the heart.
Okay. The heartache that comes up when you talk about, I'm the training wheels and you're getting ready to take them off and ride on your own.
That's it. That is, and it's all mixed up with shame too, because as soon as I tell you that and make it personal, I mean, you've been the person. You've been the object of the latest addictive set of feelings. There's an inhibiting, I'm sure it's the power person thing Michael always talks about, saying, who do you think you are? You should be ashamed of yourself. That sort of thing. Those little phrases that lived in our household are sitting there too. It's just worth looking at. Something to work on.
Well, it is. It's a great set of thoughts about different targets.
I know it's the end of the hour too, and
we're at the end of the hour, but the benefit is it'll be there for replay and examination, and to whatever degree you have the time and you want to carve out the effort and time to do the worksheets and the tools and the breathing, you'll find good solutions. And I applaud you for being willing to just explore and question this stuff honestly. So I look forward to our next conversation about this, and I appreciate greatly, more than you'll ever know, your participation on this show and your willingness to do your work in general, which of course is creating a whole different energy wherever you are that you're sharing with the world. And since we're all connected, that benefits all of us. So thank you for that. I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Blessings.